You're listening to a podcast of spurious morality.
Hello and welcome to a podcast of Spurious Morality. I'm Johnston and I've got a very crowded podcast studio this week, virtual podcast studio. I have Connor.
Hello.
I have Mansoor.
Hello.
I have Will.
Hello.
And we have Joseph Lidster with us.
Hello.
Which is quite exciting.
I don't know if you're supposed to cheer or what.
Yeah, was I meant to say more?
Just say hello, it's fine.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome back. This is our new series. This is the first one of our new series as well. We disappeared just after Christmas. We promised we'd be back, and we have finally decided we're going to fulfill that promise. So this is our big return. And we thought it would be nice to pick up a strand that we kind of started towards the end of our last series, which was, it's not called Book Club. I keep calling it Book Club. It's off target. You spent hours coming up with logos and stuff, didn't you, Connor?
Yeah.
And ever since, we've just called it Book Club. This is off target. And there are 3 newly released Target books for us to talk about. And Joe wrote one of them. Which is why we've got you in, obviously. I mean, it's not just why we've got you in. We love having you on the podcast.
It's nice to be back. It's good to be back.
It has been a little while. I think it's been 18 months or so, hasn't it, give or take?
Yeah. Was it the Villains trilogy?
Yes.
Was it the anniversary of them, or were you just doing?
I think we did it for the sake of doing it, really, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, we just decided we wanted to chat about those 3, and I thought, I'll message Joe and see if he wants to join us. So that was a lot of fun. That was good. So we've done kind of a whole series of Spodcasts since then, and had a few months off. And yeah, this is our grand return. So it'll be good to get these going again. I've missed Spodcasting. I've also had an incredibly busy few months, but I've missed Spodcasting. So we're here today to talk about the 3 newly released Target books. So they are Aliens of London, The Satan Pit, and The Time of Angels, which is, I think they're 3 good picks. I think they're 3 that sort of lean towards adaptation quite well. And obviously they're all 2-parters. They're all quite meaty stories. There's probably quite a lot to delve into on each one. So let's go first and foremost with The Satan Pit. Let's talk about that one. I had a lot of fun with this one. It reminded me instantly of The Romans, both the book and the audiobook, actually. The audiobook of The Romans was done sort of multicast, and the same kind of idea was taken here. It was sort of journal entries, and each different journal was performed by a different cast member. But it wasn't just me that did this one. I have forgotten who did do it, though. Own up, Connor. So this was your Connor and Mansoor. We just had this conversation. I should probably have made notes. So Connor and Mansoor, you guys did this one. So do you want to talk to us about it first, Connor?
Yes, certainly. So it's the original story is one of my favorite Doctor Who episodes or Doctor Who stories of all time. It's anytime I sort of go through and try and pick a favorite from each Doctor, it's always my choice for David Tennant's Doctor. And I like the survival thriller aspect of it most of all. I think it's a properly tense It's a properly tense disaster story set in the orbit of this black hole. And it's genuinely terrifying as well. Like, I remember being a kid being absolutely terrified of the Ood and terrified of the Beast and terrified of Danny. I think Danny's actually scarier than the Beast and the Ood put together. Which is it's brilliant that they accomplish so much just with makeup and an actor's performance. It works really, really well. And I really enjoyed the book as well. I went in not knowing the style that it was going to take, which, as you said, was the sort of diary style, multiple viewpoints, the characters recounting their experiences after the fact. But it worked really well for the story, and I liked that it was sort of picking up and giving us a wee bit of a view of what happened to them just after the Satan Pit. So it works really well. The voices of each character is captured really well, and the viewpoint shifts really nicely. It manages to get the Doctor's viewpoint in as well, because his confrontation with the Beast is not witnessed by anyone else, and the characters only recount the events that they themselves personally witnessed. But it manages to find a way to put the Doctors in, and I could not imagine how they were going, how he was going to do it before I got to that part of the book, and it was in my head wondering, is it going to be that one of the characters recounts it on the Doctor's behalf, or he told me this after the fact? And it's not. It's the Ood put the memories into the heads of the people who hear their song. So it ties a wee bit into Planet of the Ood as well, which I liked because it's also a Target novel that you can go and read, and I like that there's that wee bit of a link between the two novels. So I really enjoyed it. I haven't read a Target, I don't think, since we did the first Off Target last year, and it was the Ncuti Gatwa ones that got released. So it was nice to revisit this and this strand of books and read one of my favourite stories as a novel. I really enjoyed it.
It's just great that these exist. Like, on just a really basic level, it's great that we're just still getting Target novels of Doctor Who stories.
Yes, and they're still coming out so regularly. Like, whenever the first batch came out, I thought, oh, that's really cool. They're maybe going to do some of the tentpole, really famous stories. But we do seem to be building up the collection, and I really hope we do end up with a full set of this is the new series Target library down the line.
Yes, we've got to get everything, surely. What about you, Mansoor? Is there anything you want to add about the Satan Pit?
I think this was... I liked... Because we're so familiar with the stories, we're obviously quite alert to what's different, what's changed, what's added, and the framing device here was this thing that stood out to me, and also that conceit of it being told from different people's perspectives, and then that carries into the audiobook where you have multiple voices on that. So I think all of that works really well, and fits with the tone of the story as well, because you're getting into people's heads and sort of getting that first person perspective of everything that's going on. But yeah, other than that, and I agree about it's nice to be having all these big stories gradually done, like not in chronological order, but like gradually filled in. And I think there's a bit of a theme with all three books that they are kind of written with those wider arcs in mind and doing lots of little callbacks and call forwards to stuff that we know that these stories are connected to. Like in the Satan Pit, there's little bits and pieces, but I think more so in the other two as well. There's like the arcs in those seasons are quite heavily alluded to. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and yeah, I would very much recommend the audiobook as a way to consume it. That's how I read it. So.
Yeah, it's a cracking audiobook, and it's. I'm glad they kind of went with the extra cast as well, and it's good that in two cases we have the original cast as well. I mean, I've got to particularly mention Claire Rushbrook as Ida Scott, who was a great character in The Thing, I could just listen to her reading Doctor Who stories. Like, we need more Ida. We need Ida back in the TV series, and then we need her to just do all of the audiobooks for all of those stories. She was great.
Something this has inspired me to do is I have them downloaded. I haven't started listening to them yet, but I did not want to. I really want to go on and listen now to the Torchwood big finishes that were done with these characters as well. I have those downloaded and ready to go. So I'm looking forward to those as well.
Yes, I need to revisit that Ood trilogy they did, and there's a couple of others outside it as well, I think. But they were good. Okay, well let's Time of Angels it then. So Time of Angels was, I think it's fair to say that of the three, this was the straightest adaptation. It took what was on the telly and it put it on the page. It did a really good job of that, but it didn't expand. It didn't add all of these wonderful extra little bits that the Satan Pit had. Where the Satan Pit was great because we got to visit the characters afterwards, and we got to kind of explore what happened to them once they got home, and they all got embroiled in a bit of a conspiracy, and it was a fantastic framing device. Time of Angels kind of tells the story quite heavily from River Song's perspective. Like, the POV does move around a little bit, but we're kind of mainly focused on River Song, and this really worked for me because it didn't have to sort of keep the mystery of who is River Song going. We know, and we've known for 15 years now. So near enough straight away, we do get a bit from River Song of, oh, this was really weird because I was meeting my mum, and there's a lot of stuff about how she has to sort of keep this fact hidden from Amy. I thought that was particularly effective, and I really liked sort of visiting this story from that angle as opposed to the we don't quite know who this person is yet angle.
I agree with you that, like, this is, like, again, all three of these books do that nostalgic target feel really well and are just solid adaptations, and Time of the Angels included. But I think, like, there is a little bit of difference, and it's the thing that you were just describing, because that's all the stuff about River's arc and where that ends up. That's not explicit in the TV version because some of that hadn't happened yet. And in this novelisation, you have references back to Silence of the Library. They're a bit more explicit, and like references forward to where River's story is going. So, not dancing around a mystery that we all know the answer to, I think, was the right choice, and it gives us like a sort of slightly different take or additional layer to put on top of the original story. But yeah, other than that, like, this is similar to the Satan Pit, I think, in terms of, like, certainly like in like the second half of the story, like, atmosphere is really important, and I think it nails that, especially, again, like, a good audiobook reading helps with that. And again, I listened to this rather than read the physical book, and yeah, it worked really well for me in terms of recreating that atmosphere of the TV show.
I think of the three, this is the one that I remembered the least as well. It's a newer story. Yeah, it's a newer story. I've seen it less. It's that simple. This obviously came out a few years after the other two that we're discussing, and therefore it did manage to surprise me at a few points. I'd kind of forgotten just certain little quirks that happened, sort of the soldiers kind of going off into the crack and disappearing and forgetting each other, which is a really, really creepy sequence, both on screen and in the book. So it was kind of nice to be reminded that happened, even though it was pretty grim, and to hear it from sort of Amy's perspective when she's got her eyes closed and everything. That was great. So yeah, it was a really, really strong, sort of solid adaptation that didn't add too much, but it didn't really need to add too much because there's a lot that goes on in that story. I did like how... Oh, go on.
Oh no, I was just going to say, like, and it's the way it's done as well. It's not just a kind of like sort of fanish mashing together a continuity. There's nice little character touches, like one of the bits that stood out to me was when, like, River's looking at Amy and she feels like a sense of pride and sort of goes like, and then sort of thinks to herself, oh, that's weird for to be, proud of your mother, and then she thinks, no, that's fine, you can be proud of your mother. And there's those little sort of, so those layers are put on top rather than just in a kind of retcon, make it all fit kind of way, in a way that makes sense for the characters and enhances, your understanding of who they are as people.
I think a lot of the, because I talked about how sort of we're focusing on POVs of certain characters, particularly River, that kind of thing. That was really good. That was sort of a really strong addition. But one thing it did do, and I'm glad it did this, was the bit where the Doctor sort of visits Amy and it's actually happening during the Big Bang. It kind of glosses over that. It kind of just goes, for reasons that are too complicated to explain now, this isn't the Doctor that was there before, but here he is. He's going to have a chat with Amy and just go with it, guys, is basically what the book says. I'm really glad it didn't go into, so actually after all of this happened and this happened and this happened, and therefore the Doctor ended up in this situation. But it just kind of went, this is not that, Doctor, just deal with it and move on. I really liked how it did that, because it could have sort of got stuck into continuity, as you were sort of mentioning. So yes, that's 2 down already. So we'd better move on to Aliens of London, which I guess is the big talking point of this one. I had a great deal of fun with this. Like it did exactly what I wanted it to do. It just expanded on loads and loads of little areas that were ripe for picking up on. And I've just seen the 3 of you all smile, so I'm not actually going to spoil any of them. I'm going to let you guys go for it. You haven't been yet, Will, so you go first.
Okay, yes. So I actually listened to the audiobook, which was narrated sort of very fittingly and very, very well by Camille Kajuri, which I think was a great choice. I really like this, which is good because the writer is here with us. It just does a lot of the things that I want a target to do. Basically, you've got I always enjoyed Aliens of London World War III. It's one of the first Doctor Who stories I ever saw. It has that sort of very season 25 kind of feel of being very sort of pulpy and campy and swashbuckling, but actually having things underneath, very serious points about warmongering and profiteering and sort of using an emergency to an advantage and things like this. And I think what this book does very well, among other things, is really sort of shining a spotlight on some of the moments that go on in that story and sort of slowing down and saying, we really sort of have to think about the fact that people are dying here. Lots of people die in this story, and you really feel it in this book in particular when it is the people narrating the story that are dying around you. And as well as that, the whole story is predicated on this idea that Rose has been gone for a year, having only supposed to be gone for a day, and there's more focus given to that, of how heartbreaking that would be for Jackie, and Mickey being accused of all sorts for a whole year and things like that. There's more time spent on that aspect, and we get more sort of wringing more of that sadness out, I suppose, which you couldn't have, which there wouldn't have been as much time for in this very sort of snappy New Who episodes that we get. And so overall, I think those sort of additions and little tweaks just really just enhances the experience, and that's the kind of thing I think you want when you're reading a book like this. Similar to your points about Time of Angels, you've got the whole River Song thing going on in that, and you have to talk about the fact that Amy is River's mom and things like this, which wasn't known at the time the episode came out. You've got similar ideas that are going on here, because of course Aliens of London features the debut of Toshiko, who originally, of course, was just a doctor, as far as we all knew, but now would go on to do Torchwood. And so this book sort of there's a few touches about Torchwood 3 and why Tosh is there. The space begins that we hear about in Exit Wounds and things like this. And we also get other pointers to Torchwood, like Torchwood 1. There's some mention of what's Yvonne doing around this time. There are even some references to comics, I think, and I assume some audios. I think because I know they've been spending a lot of time around the Powell estate in the recent 90 days, so it wouldn't surprise me if there's a couple of references there. I haven't got around to them yet, though, so that'll be a surprise myself if Brady, Betty, etc. shows up there. So I think overall, I think it takes the story and just adds so much extra stuff to it that you would want to see in this kind of thing. And also Barry, of course, who is fantastic extra sort of focus there, I guess.
Oh, Barry might possibly be the best addition to a Doctor Who story there's ever been.
Yeah, that was great when you sort of realise what's going on with Barry.
Yeah, Barry was great. Connor, do you want to come in on this one?
Yes, I really enjoyed it as well. Just immediately picking up on the Barry conversation. Barry's first scene where he's getting bought by the Slitheen from his farm. I really enjoyed, and it was the first. It sets the tone very nicely for what the rest of the book is doing. Because I was reading this thinking, oh, this is all brand new. I've no idea who Barry is. This is great. This is all brand new stuff. And I was reading it, and then the penny dropped right at the end of his first little chapter, and I was like, right, I now need to read the whole chapter straight back over again to make sure I haven't missed anything, because that was great. I loved how he got introduced. But as I say, it sets the tone for what the rest of the book is doing, because so many characters that are on screen for not very long and are not fleshed out very well in the original get so much added to them in this. Like, I loved PC Tristan, who keeps popping up, and he's the constable who comes and interviews the Doctor and Rose at the beginning, and he keeps popping up throughout the book, and you see things from his point of view, and I really enjoyed that. I loved seeing these events from all the different points of view and how different types of people react to them. I loved the focus on Jackie and Mickey's relationship, because we know how close he was to the Tyler family. We see that sort of, how... We see that in Father's Day, where Mickey's already known to Jackie, and she recognizes him instantly in that story. So he's been part of their lives for a very long time, and this fully goes into what the last year must have been like for both of them as individuals, but for their relationship with each other as well. And I really loved the moment right at the end where, even though they've been at each other's throats for the best part of a year, they both sort of simultaneously decide, right, we're going to set all that to one side, set all that behind us, and move on and do what we need to do to survive here. A great moment. I really, really loved that. I like the additions, as Will said, of Torchwood, because this is written in, this has been written in 2025, 2026. There's so much context now that we know with regards to Tosh and Torchwood and Yvonne, and it doesn't shy away from including that sort of thing. So that's great. It ultimately does exactly what I want from a Target novel, which is it presents what's on screen, and it brings to mind the feel and it brings the original stories to mind, and you can picture all of that in your head. But it is adding more that you can only get in a book form. It does add things that it can add now with the context of being it being in 2026, and it's not pretending that this is written in 2005 or anything. We are getting later stuff added in. We're getting that extra context. So I really, really enjoyed it. It was fantastic.
On that point about it being written in sort of 2025, 2026, I liked there's one bit where the Doctor gets frustrated about the fact that if this story had happened a few years later, he would have a smartphone and he could do, he could try and do all of the missile stuff himself, which I think is quite a fun little pointer to that, it having been written later, and you can include little bits like that.
Yeah, I mean, with that, it was just, I thought if some kids reading this, they're going to be like, why are they going to all this faff? If her phone works, she can do everything on her phone. And it was the same with Harriet. There was a bit where Harriet, a lot of the filling in the gaps is stuff that doesn't matter on the telly, but when you're novelising it, you start to go, well, where's Harriet for a good period of the day? Because she sort of arrives, is brilliant, instantly amazing, and then disappears, and then sees the Savine, and then disappears for a bit because the story, goes back to the characters and stuff. So I have her hiding in the loo, and just the reality of she's not from London, she doesn't know how to get to unit. Because again, she doesn't have a smartphone, and I just thought actually it was quite fun to sort of go. Actually, without a smartphone, I wouldn't know how to get from Downing Street to the Tower of London. It's so yeah, it was quite fun to have those little bits.
I guess it's also very easy to forget that smartphones weren't a thing then as well. Like when you come to adapt it, and that kind of thing. Mansoor, is there anything you want to add about Aliens of London before we start throwing questions at Joe?
What people have said, and I liked the Torchwood stuff, and not just the sort of superficial stuff of like mentions of Jack, mentions of Yvonne, Toshiko being explicitly acknowledged, but like the sort of Torchwood vibe, which you wouldn't automatically think would fit with this TV story. But I think all of that stuff about getting into the heads of characters as they're about to die, that feels very sort of bleak and Torchwoody, and I think it worked really well in this story. And yeah, what you're saying, Connor, about like presenting what's on screen faithfully but adding layers, all this stuff, I completely agree with you. And there's one little thing that was like a really interesting example of that is like when Rose calls the doctor gay, and on TV it's not really gone into, it's just a throwaway thing and was a little bit controversial at the time. But in this novelization, none of what's said or what happens has changed. That still happens, but you get a little back and forth, like an internal monologue and a bit of unspoken stuff that addresses it. And yeah, I thought that was like, that sort of stuff was really nice. That thing of like being faithful but also adding something.
And it does add an awful lot. It's lots of clever little additions throughout that just kind of make it a bigger and more wonderful story. And it's a great story to start with. Like I loved Aliens of London at the time and still love it now. It's a lot of fun. In many ways, it's kind of the archetypal story of that era. But being able to just hear this fantastic audiobook of expanded little bits of it was just great. I'm hijacking the question a bit, Joe, because I've got to ask you this one first. There's a character called Big Ed. Is that a Twin Peaks reference?
Is he the farmer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, so that was interesting because, I think, well, maybe was it subconsciously? He's the farmer that sells Barry, isn't he?
Yes.
So that chapter, that prologue, I went into this, not having a clue what I'm doing. The only idea I really had was I really want to have I thought, wouldn't it be funny to have it's dark as anything, but wouldn't it be fun to have a prologue from the point of view of the space pig being sold, or being kidnapped by the Savine, but written as if the character was human, and then right at the end of the chapter we mentioned snout and trotters and things, so you realise, oh, what's going on. And then, because I really wanted to do that the last bit of the book, which, spoilers for anyone who's not read it, is the Doctor and Rose take a load of pigs to another planet. And that's partly because I did work on a pig farm when I was 13, and they're absolutely horrific places. And it's like doing that Robert Holmes thing, I don't really eat meat anymore. But it's also, the story ends on a really downbeat note of Jackie and Mickey walking their separate ways. Because then what you get is next time, here's the next exciting adventure. And I thought I wanted to end on something upbeat. I wanted to end on a lovely chapter of the Doctor and Rose doing something that referenced something else in the book. So I came up with the idea of the big thing. So it's the first thing I wrote, the prologue of Barry. And I went to the Target Book Day that James Goss organised last year, read it out, was terrified, read it all out. The book then all gets written, sent through to each level of compliance and the BBC and editors and notes and everything like that. And at one point, and it's long after it's all pretty much done, at one point we get the note back going, Russell wrote a short story about the Savine being bought, about Margaret buying the Savine, which I was gutted because I was like, oh, don't want to lose this. So we hunted it down, and he wrote it basically for Doctor Who magazine, I think for like the 20th anniversary of Series 1. And thankfully, what he wrote was a story about a woman who refuses to sell Margaret Slevine a pig. So it's all her point of view, and it's sort of her life. Obviously it's Russell. It's gorgeous, astonishing, beautiful short story that thankfully, right at the end or just before the end, the old woman, the main character, goes, "Oh, I see Ed at such and such a farm has bought a pig and is suddenly really rich." So then it was like I had to completely rewrite the chapter. So it's a completely different version of this. Mine was Barry had met the Slevine before, and the Slevine had promised to take him into space. So I was really going for the Doctor companion dynamic. He'd met this new best friend who was going to take him into space. Then he meets him again, and this time, and because he's a pig, he can't tell the difference between Slevine and human. And so this time he realizes no, he's in danger, but too late. So then it got replaced with he's bought by Margaret. From Ed. And I can't remember why Big Ed. Maybe it was deliberate, but I just think it was because I gave him a son, because I needed Barry to have a little, I want to see the stars. So I thought there's got to be someone who reads sci-fi or comics or something near him. So I gave him a sort of a younger farmer. So I don't know, maybe it was deliberate without me thinking.
Subconscious peaks.
Yeah.
So I think Will had a few questions he wanted to send in your direction, so I will let Will take over for a few minutes.
Yes, so just a couple of thoughts that I had just while I was reading it. I did wonder, but I suppose you really already spoke about this, of how much you were into, given that this was originally Russell's episode, how much were you in touch with Russell during the thing, or was it more a case of just do what you like and then hope that he hasn't written a Doctor Who magazine special? Was it more that case of you just going off and doing it?
I had no contact with Russell at all. It was based on the TV scripts. A sort of mutual thing was didn't want to really touch Russell's dialogue because it's so good. Why would you? Ed deleted stuff and obviously added stuff, but pretty much any line that is from the episode that is in the book is the same line. Then with stuff added and taken away. But I mean, I'm quite sort of, because I've done a lot of the stuff like tortured audios and things like that. Once I've got the storyline signed off and everything like that, the first thing I tend to do is go to TARDIS Wiki and just have a look. And unfortunately, for some reason, this Barry not Barry because he's not called Barry, the pig short story that Russell wrote isn't on the TARDIS Wiki, but I found it on somewhere else, and then someone else found a copy of it for me. But I tend to sort of go on there and go, oh right, that's already been mentioned somewhere. So shall I reference that? I like everything being in one world. I think everything being in one universe is great fun and fits very well with that 2005, 2006 vibe of all of those Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures and Doctor Who all very clearly happening in the same universe. So yeah, no, didn't have any contact with Russell. It was just a case of sort of get on with it, really. And then had a meeting with Steve Cole about a couple of things. Basically, the Torchwood thing was a big thing because the easiest thing to have done would have been just to have Tosh not be Torchwood. But I like the fact that she's then revealed to be Torchwood. But then once you analyse it, you go, and it doesn't really make any sense because Torchwood are meant to capture the Doctor, and then she doesn't capture the Doctor, and she just disappears from the story. And then you go, well, actually, Jack wouldn't want her to capture the Doctor because Jack's already been through this adventure. Because and you start getting all these. I'm not good with time travel, so you start having to sit there and go, well, what's Jack? Right, the Jack on Earth knows that this stuff has happened. He's not lived through it before, but he knows that it's happened because the Doctor would have told him that it's happened. So he knows that all of this has happened. So then I sort of went, well, actually, what if Jack tells Torchwood 3 when he can, I'm going to send someone to protect the Doctor, which Tosh doesn't really do, but, it sort of explains why she doesn't shoot him or anything. But from the point of view of writing the book, what I tried to do is create this thing. She's got a gun, basically, and we don't know what her mission is. to create that sort of added tension of if you're reading the book, which I very much doubt anybody is, but I think you have to write the book as if it's being read by someone who's never seen the TV series, because that's most of the target books I read were stories I'd never seen and didn't think I'd ever see. So I think for me, I was trying to write it like that. Like, what if you hadn't seen this story? So therefore I was like, well, that's great. That's an extra tension of who is this mysterious Dr. Sato who, has a gun and is waiting for the doctor. So there was that. And the gay thing was another thing we talked about. I personally don't have a problem with her saying you're so gay, because I don't think she's saying it. And obviously, she's not homophobic. It's a thing people say. I, as a gay man, will say it to friends. I am aware, though, that it is a problematic thing. And what I am certainly aware of is it's not something I'd necessarily say in public to a friend, because you don't know who's sitting behind you on the bus. There might be a young boy or girl behind you on the bus who might misconstrue it, and when they're going through things. So I wanted to very much keep it in, but at the same time, again, it's the slight difference between the TV episodes and the novelisation. When Billie Piper says it, and she's stunning, and she's got that amazing smile, and it looks so beautiful, and they're on the roof, and seconds later there's a spaceship, it doesn't hit as much as if you see it in black and white on a page. And if she just says, you're so gay, and then the doctor goes, your mum hit me, or whatever his next line is, you're like, oh, okay, is that just an okay thing to say to someone? So it's quite, but I think it was being aware that some things hit more on the page than they might do on screen. Like you need to reference that the Slovene go for large people. On the screen, I don't think it's really particularly mentioned. So what I did in the book was specify that it's not just a sort of bigger weight, it's taller. So I've made Joseph Smith much taller. Not Smith, what's he called? Joseph Green,
yeah.
much smaller. Yeah, he's like 7 foot tall or so. So I've got that they go for anybody who is big that they can find. Because again, just words on the page can land a bit more than the visuals in an episode.
Yeah. I also just had a question about, I guess, sort of the process of going about adapting something like this. So in particular, so we get all of these point of view characters, such as Indra Ganesh and Tristan White and the policeman in Downing Street, whose name I've forgotten. So
Yes.
how do you decide, I guess, to delve into these characters? Because not only are we have them narrating the story, of course, we learn lots of bits about their life. Is it a case of, I guess, they were there for this particular scene, or how do you sort of go about when you read the script and watch the episode and say, I think we should be in this person's head?
I mean, I'm going to be. I didn't plan it at all. I didn't go. I think the one thing I had in my mind was that if it was being made now on Netflix, we'd have a lot more characters that would be dotted throughout, and that we would go back and we would see. I mean, basically, Twin Peaks Return is my go-to now for what I'm writing, of going, what is the best, most interesting way to tell the story that isn't necessarily chronological, and it isn't necessarily following those characters, but actually is entertaining in the best way to tell it. And I think the other thing the only thing I had in my head was, I thought, when it's at the end, as the missiles are about to land on Downing Street, I thought, I really want as many people as possible, as many characters as possible reacting to that. So I started to sort of expand people. But then the other thing I think was, it's far more interesting when a character is reacting to us, for me anyway, for me, it's far more interesting when a character is reacting in a scene who isn't a Doctor Who character. So the moment you have Rose has seen everything already. I mean, she's brilliant. She's still discovering everything, but everything she reacts to is going to be based on what she's seen in the last, was it 4 stories? The Doctor, obviously, I mean, I don't particularly want to go into the Doctor's head. Jackie at first is fine, but already a few scenes in, Jackie is aware of what's going on. So I sort of thought, well, therefore, the interesting character to tell the scene with the policeman in is from the policeman's point of view, because he's not in any of their heads. It also slightly tones down the emotional trauma. You're not writing a scene from the point of view of Jackie, who is up there, or Rose, who's out there. You write a scene from somebody who's like, I'm doing my job. It's quite early in the day. I didn't get my breakfast. Oh, here's what's going on. And I also thought doing stuff like that for me is that sort of Terence Dicks thing. I mean, that's what Terence Dicks did, and he's obviously the god of novelizing. You know, it's expand things, make it a bit more big budget, but also just little. You know, you're not suddenly turning everybody into the most amazing three-dimensional characters, but you're just adding extra bits to them. And so it would be a case of, I looked at that policeman and went, he looks quite young. So what is a young policeman then going to do for the rest of the day? And then, yeah, just found myself doing that. Indra was a sort of very obvious character to expand on, because he's sort of the main character for a few scenes in the story, and he has a terrible it's a terrible day he dies, but he has a terrible day before he dies, because it's just utterly baffling what is going on. And so it's the same, yeah. So I tried to sort of do that all the way through, and then you suddenly start going, well, when the Doctor and Rose and that get taken by the police, that's the second lot of policemen. So what if the second lot of police knew? What if Tristan comes back and he's involved in that? And then what if he actually knows the big policeman, who we find out is a Slovene? And then I could put in a little bit of, well, what if he's going to get killed by the Slovene? And it's that added thing. So it's just a case of doing that. And then as it expanded, I'd find myself going, well, what's Tristan doing now? What's Molly, the character created for the sort of downstairs flat in the thing? What's she doing now? What are all the characters doing now while they're reacting to this sort of crazy situation that's developing? But yeah, I didn't plan it. I'd like to say I planned it all, but literally it was like, oh, whoa, now. And it was when I got to the Downing Street stuff, it was suddenly aware that there's nobody in this story anymore who is a normal human being, who isn't aware of what's going on. So I'm having great fun writing scenes from Savine's point of view. Harriet already is aware of what's going on. Jack, you know, so it was like, well, the guy in Downing Street, who I think has got about 3 lines, I suddenly went, this will sound very pretentious, but I suddenly had the thing of him thinking, why did I say no to the girl in the red dress at the fountain? Maybe that's a bit Twin Peaks, I don't know. You know, why did he say no? And I just thought, oh, that's a really nice sort of character beat that he might think as he thinks he's going to die. And that suddenly led, and that is in there, but that suddenly led to, well, actually, he's the most human character. And then it was like, well, he doesn't really do anything. And I went, well, actually, I'm pretty certain he hits an alarm and evacuates Downing Street and then goes upstairs. And I thought, oh, that's really quite brave, because he's been told to keep people there, hasn't he? You know, and I just thought, oh, that's really lovely. So he's a character I can give a little journey to, which is don't always obey orders, which is what his whole life has been. So yeah, it was just sort of fun to do, really.
Very nice, thank you very much. Just had a couple of other questions. I don't know if anyone wanted to jump in, but I guess one thing, because you've already mentioned that a lot of the stuff that was there in the original script, you've sort of kept pretty similar, especially the dialogue and things like that. I guess there are a couple of small changes in the story, which is going to happen in any adaptation, I suppose. When do you decide to make a change? Is it you know, a deliberate thing of when you're reading it, you think, I might tweak that slightly, or is it just more as you're writing it, they just sort of fall out kind of thing?
I mean, as I was writing it, really. So, for example, the added chapter of the fair, I can't remember the character's name. It's so bad.
Oliver Charles.
The guy, Oliver Charles, yeah, who's having the affair. Well, he's having 2 affairs. That wasn't in it for a while. That was because I was still a bit, just do the book, add characters and stuff, but you can't be adding all new scenes. And it was the problems. I kept reading it and going, again, it's what really works on telly, which is Rose and the Doctor talking. Oh, can my adventures continue? I don't. Then spaceship comes, and then it's that music, and it's brilliant, and it's dun dun dun, and it's exciting, and then spaceship crashes into Big Ben, and we've got newsreaders, and it's really fun and fast and pacey, and exactly what you want on telly. you write that in the book, and what you actually have is Rose, and then suddenly Rose and the Doctor are somewhere looking at them, and the spaceship's hitting Big Ben, and then they're back in the flat, or they're walking through the courtyard, and it's all just if you write it down in a book, it comes across as very bitty, but actually what it does is it loses the pace that's in the episode. So I thought, well, actually, let's deliberately pause the pace. So you're desperate to know what this spaceship that's just flown over their heads is, and then you cut to these other characters who are totally unrelated to the story, who are very silly, very posh, and then it's quite a dark humour type thing, and then you go back to the spaceship. So that is often to do with the pacing. Would feel odd if it directly copied what was on the. Well, not would feel odd. It just wouldn't. It doesn't work as well in a book. It's that. I mean, I love Aliens London so much because of its pace and the editing and the music and the way it cut and the speed at which it's told. In a book, you've got the opportunity to do it in a slightly different way without changing that. So it was doing things like that. I remember I looked at it and went, I don't quite know where the Doctor and Rose are when the spaceship hits Big Ben, because they seem to be on a very busy street, but I know that area. I go Kennington and Southwark, and that is an area I know very well. I used to work there. I was working there when they were making Doctor Who, actually, that sort of area. But also I know that to get into town from that area is quite tricky. So I sort of moved them to, they haven't got very far. They've got just out of the estate and they see it. And then I thought it'd be quite fun if they saw it on the telly. I'm trying to think what other changes I made.
One change that I quite liked, I think, is in the original episode, the Doctor never learns. It's a very small change. In the original episode, the Doctor never learns Indra's name because he asks Harriet what's his name, and she says, I never asked. And it's quite sad, and he just sort of lays him down and says sorry in the cupboard. Whereas in the book, he actually does. Harriet does ask, and he does learn his name and says, sorry, Indra Ganesh, and things like that. I think that was quite a nice sort of, because we've been in his head. It's a nice touch.
I think again it was the thing of the reality of. I mean, it's such a gorgeous moment on the telly that he doesn't know his name, and that's such a Doctor Who moment of the Doctor grieving the sadness of somebody whose name he doesn't know. But I think in the book, it just felt like Harriet and Indra were both in Downing Street for quite a long time. That for her not to know Indra's name felt quite, why isn't she going, what's your name at any point? She's bringing him coffee and everything like that. In the TV version, there's no room for that. In the book, that she's there for longer. There are more scenes with her. So she would know his name, which means the Doctor would know his name. So it just made sort of slightly more sense. Which is, I don't know, because I think it's such a gorgeous moment in the TV version that it's maybe a shame to lose it. But it was just the logic of it. It was, well, they would know his name.
Yeah, I think from a sentimental point, I think it also works in the book just because we've spent more time with him and things like that.
Yes,
and you feel a bit more. He at least gets that kind of thing. I think. It's quite nice. And then I suppose on that point, were there any changes or additions or expansions that you considered doing that you didn't end up doing in the end?
I don't think there was much. There were little bits like I took out Andrew Marr and Blue Peter and things like that, and I just thought, well, if that I can keep the reporter that was in it already. It was often just thinking about that the Torchwood stuff was very difficult because I didn't necessarily want somebody sitting down and going, well, in 18 whatever, Queen Victoria establishes Torchwood and all this backstory that's irrelevant to the story and so on. So it's kind of, how can I... But at times I was thinking, do I have a big scene like that? Do I have a scene where we really delve into what Torchwood is? Why isn't Torchwood 1 involved and everything like that? And I thought, actually, I'd rather keep it light, General Asquith just goes, I've kept Torchwood away. Great. That's it. Job done. So it was thinking of ways to do it without adding lots of exposition, but to add what would hopefully be a spooky drama. So having Jack there right at the end, if you're the 1% of children reading this book who's never seen the TV, because obviously everything has changed. Now it's all an iPlayer. Obviously back in my day, it was I did not know what Joe Grant looked like. It was I read these books and didn't know who these people were. And with this, I was kind of if there's somebody reading it, they're not going to know who Captain Jack is. Maybe there's someone reading this who doesn't know who Captain Jack is, and who right at the end sees Margaret Savine land in a bin, and he walks away knowing he'll meet her again. And so if you don't know, that to me brings back memories of reading a Target novelization and not knowing when it's referencing something else and going, oh, that's so exciting. What is this reference to something? Without the story I'm reading not having a beginning, middle, and end. It's that thing of going, oh, I need to find out who the master is, who's appeared in this one book I've read, and apparently they've met before. And what's this? The Doctor's been on trial. I want to know what this is all about. But the book I'm reading just mentions the Doctor's been on trial, and it was that sort of thing. That's what I tried to do with the torture stuff. Was very much, 95% of people who read the book are going to know everything and have seen it all. But I think when you're writing it, it's fun to sort of go, well, what if you're also you want it to be a book, a book. You don't just want it to be. A novelization should still be a book. It shouldn't be Wikipedia. It shouldn't be that. So yeah, you kind of want to do that. So I don't think there's anything I really took out. There's a hint that Yanto's at the window I nearly pushed that further. I nearly had a scene from his point of view, but again, it would have been like there's so much exposition I'd have to go, because he's at Quiet the Life from the Tortured audios I've done. And he's been there he's been there a year, and I'd gone through all sorts of nonsense by this point. So it was like, no, it's more fun to have that. So yeah, no, I don't think there was any big massive additions that I then chose not to have. It was more just about adding extra stuff, often for Jackie or Mickey, adding extra stuff to do what you don't want on the telly. On the telly, you don't want them sitting chalking because you want spaceships and aliens in Downing Street. You don't want Jackie crying in a loo in the TV version because you don't want her to be fun at the party. And that, when you come to novelise it, what you realise is Jackie's like I don't know if you've ever experienced somebody going missing. It's the most traumatic thing you can go through. To go through that for a year, and then somebody, and not just your daughter, your only daughter, after your husband has died. I mean, that is the worst thing I think a Doctor Who character could go through. She has the scene where she hits the Doctor. She has one scene with Rose where she's sort of crying, going, I wish you could tell me where she is. And literally the next time you see her, she's hosting a party going, that Billy Crute asked me out. Jackie Tyler's recovery is amazing. But because in the TV, that's not the stuff that's missing from the TV version, is you don't want that in the TV version. You don't miss it in the TV version because the adventure's happening. The book allows you to sort of go, let's have 2 more scenes here. Let's have Jackie get caught up hosting the party because everybody loves Jackie. Then let's have a scene at the party where she's doing and just allows you to do more. And the stuff with Mickey, a lot of that came from, I think, that I'd forgotten actually so much about Father's Day, how much they know each other then. But I think the sort of audios and books since like the Rose novelisation, so from Russell's own words, is that Mickey and the Tylers are a lot closer than I think you might necessarily think from Rose and Aliens of London, the TV stories, where he's Rose's boyfriend. You don't necessarily think he's massively close to Jackie or anything like that. So obviously it was trying to sort of merge that thing of, are Mickey and Jackie, have they had this really close life that's been established in the stuff where he's been brought up by his gran because his dad died or ran away and his mum died, or then his gran died. So he's got this tragic backstory, but to tie that in with the Jackie sent the police to his door. So it was nice to be able to sort of add stuff. And because they're such fun characters, Jackie and Mickey, they get over it really quickly. They both reach their lowest ebb, and then they just get a bit where they go, well, should we hug? Yeah, fine. Job done, move on. Which I very much enjoyed writing that sort of stuff for Jackie and Mickey. Just their back and forth as to who's the dominant one in the friendship, who's the adult in the friendship, changes in different moments, in different scenes, and that's a real joy to write. It's a real joy to write that sort of thing. I basically believe these characters are real, so in some ways it was quite easy to write because I'm just like, well, obviously Jackie and Mickey are real, so how are they reacting here?
Thanks very much. That actually reminded me on your point about sort of your approach, the sort of Torchwood and your approach to references. There was a moment, I think, when I was listening to the audiobook where Harriet opens the emergency protocols and it says there was Unit, and then below there's Torchwood. And then it says, and then there was another one below it. And just for a second, I was like, surely he hasn't put the Forge in here. Like, surely that's too much of a deep cut.
I bet that went through my head at one point. I'm sure it would have done. But it was like, again, it's that thing of going, I'm a nerd. I love referencing stuff, but it's got to be there for except for Magpie Electricals. That's not there for a reason. It's just funny.
Yeah.
From now on, anytime somebody does anything electrical, watches a telly, it has to be, oh, she looked at the Magpie Electrical sign on the television. It's like, nobody cares, but it's just fun. But with that, it was, again, it was A, trying to find something for Harriet to do, because she has this period in the story where she doesn't really do anything. The emergency protocols are quite glossed over in the TV episodes, because again, nobody cares. They are a MacGuffin sort of thing. But then I thought, actually, it's quite a nice way to introduce Unit, because again, in the TV episodes, because of where it sits in the thing, Russell doesn't want my old friend Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. He wants, exists some soldiers who know about aliens and they're called Unit. That's as much as we really need to know, and then they all get killed. In the book, you go, well, who are they? So I thought, actually, that's quite a nice moment to have Harriet sit there and go, here are Unit, the Torchwood, and so on. Which again meant I could bring back the guy from Christmas Invasion, which again just sort of goes, it's all set in the same universe. If Aliens of London had been made after the Christmas Invasion, he would have been in it. He would have been a seed in it. So it's nice to sort of just make it all one world, and to use that sort of thing to explain a bit of backstory that you don't want to dwell into too much. But yeah, the Forge would have been ridiculous.
Yeah, the potential that really would have opened up a can of worms.
Yeah, then I would have cut to, what was he called? Nimrod, who ran the Nimrod.
Nimrod. Yeah.
What was going as Nimrod sucked the blood off someone? He thought about what was going on with the spaceship in London. That was it. I'm sure at one point I thought, maybe do I have Sarah Jane Smith react? Do we cut to her? Because a brilliant bit is it in the Rose novelisation where Russell cuts to Donna. In what I'm sure is that the only one he's done, the Rose novelisation. I'm sure there's a brilliant bit in that where it just cuts to, meanwhile in Chiswick, a temp fell asleep and slept through it all or something like that. And it's such a lovely fun moment that doesn't stop the book being its own self-contained release. So I definitely did consider Sarah Jane Smith at one point, and I was like, you're being silly now.
I feel like I've been robbed of a message from Connor, all capital letters, saying, "Oh my God, the Forge."
Yes, I would have loved it. Funny you say that. I'm sure it's today or yesterday. Everything's blurry. Mark Wright put on his Instagram page that he'd found the original script of Project Twilight, and it just reminded me how much I absolutely adore Project Twilight. I sort of did write for the Forge. I stuck a Forge character in a Tegan story that I wrote. Somebody was working for the Forge, because it was so much fun to do that, and that sort of then obviously is what happened to Torchwood, where suddenly in series 2 of Torchwood, Doctor Who, some Torchwood is mentioned all the time, like Bad Wolf.
Just going back to the Magpie Electricals reference, I have to admit, when I heard that, when I was listening to the audiobook, I did think, was that reference in the original one? Like, did they really cleverly seed Magpie Electricals a year beforehand, and I've just never noticed it?
Because they don't watch it on telly. They don't do that. They are sort of in the street, and there's sort of all this traffic, and it looks very central London-y, which they wouldn't be in from where their flat is.
Yeah.
So I did think the nerdy thing about the geography, but then the geography thing did give me the brilliant. Not brilliant. That I realised was that they would drive over Westminster Bridge. Because if I go into town, I get the bus over, that does go over Westminster Bridge. They drive over Westminster Bridge to go to Downing Street. So I pass Downing Street whenever I go into central London. So it's that thing of going, actually, for Rose, 2 or 3 days ago, she was running down this bridge, accompanied by Murray Gold's tune, Westminster Bridge. And I sort of thought, that's quite a nice moment with geography-wise, where I can have Rose reference in her brain going, this is crazy, and she almost sees her and the Doctor running down the road, which would be lovely. No, Magpie Electricals, I think it was in The Idiot's Lantern, and then any story afterwards where you see Electrical and Magpie Electricals.
They were even in the TARDIS for a bit.
Yeah, part of the TARDIS was made by Magpie Electricals by the Matt Smith era.
I love it.
It showed up in the Shooty Gatwa era, actually. I don't remember where, but it has definitely shown up.
Yeah,
I was like, I like that. I like little sort of one
Yeah,
of the
it's fun.
references.
It's the thing that doesn't matter to anybody, but a telly has to have a logo on it at some point, so you're probably going to have to stick something on. I'm sure Martha's telly that explodes has Magpie Electricals.
It does, yeah, pretty sure.
And if not, it will when you write the novelisation.
Well, when I do
So, a question has kind of come to mind, which is, I guess it's a really obvious one, really, but how does it feel to have written a Target novelisation?
Do you know what? It's so ridiculous because it's like there's that often it's just a job, and it's not just a job. You know, the Target novelisations were my Doctor Who growing up, so there is that thing of it's not just a job, but at the same time, life goes on. So it's like I'm now looking for the next job, and I'm writing a play, and I'm doing this. So it's sort of it's job done. It's been and come out, and done. And then obviously because it comes out long after you've done it, you find yourself doing interviews like this. And you're sort of like, oh god, yeah, that was it. So it's sort of this sort of thing where you slightly move on, but yeah, then there is this thing of it sometimes just suddenly hits you. You go, when I die, there's a Target novelisation with my name on it. That's never going away. That's the joy of it. It is. There's always with anything that I do that's related to Doctor Who and ever. There's Nerd Joe, Doctor Who fan, who grew up loving Doctor who loves Doctor Who. But there's also Rai to me who goes, well, actually, my main takeaway from it was I really enjoyed doing the job. It was a job I really enjoyed, and it was a job I'd love to do again. It's when again, like I say, I don't necessarily plan it all, but when I sit there and go, that leads into that, which then that young policeman, once it all starts coming together like that, I love doing that. And so it's more just, I really, really enjoyed doing it. And I started off very scared. It was like I had no confidence about doing it. I don't have that much experience writing prose. I've written very little prose in comparison to scripts. So I was nervous about doing it, but my confidence increased as I was writing it. And I was like, and by the end of it, I was actually really enjoying it. It's hard. It's a hard job because you are sitting there going, what the heck's Torchwood 1 doing right now? Why aren't they in it? And because they don't need to be. Muriel Frost, it's like, well, she's named as Muriel Frost, so I have to put her as Muriel Frost. But how can I not just have her as Muriel Frost, but have this character who I don't want to sit there and explain all her backstory, but also give her relevance to the story around it? And so it's like, well, actually, she's anti-Rose. She's a character who goes, I wish I'd travelled with the Doctor, which helps tie it into Rose's thing throughout the story of not, having to go with the Doctor and leave her mum behind. So it's really enjoyable doing all that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. But yeah, then there is that thing where you just go, Target novelisation. And when somebody posts a picture on Instagram going, I've picked up this in Waterstones or whatever, I'm like, there's a book with my name on it. That's fun. So yeah, it's both. It's both those things. It's a really fun, really rewarding job. Especially because also it's my favourite Doctor Who story. So I got to do that. That's a big thing. But yes, and then there is the occasional reminder of going, Target novelisation. That's Doctor Who.
And if you could do another one, which story would you like to do?
I'd love to do any sort of those Series 1, Series 2. Father's Day, I would adore to write Father's Day. Love and Monsters. Christmas Invasion's done, isn't it? Father's Day or Love and Monsters would be the dream. But I'd love to do anything involving Martha Jones would be amazing because I adore Martha. Anything from those first 2 or 3 years would be amazing. But then I'd also, if you suddenly gave me Matt Smith, Amy and Rory, who I really don't know as well as the earlier stuff, I'd really enjoy that for exploring characters I don't know as well. Father's Day would be the absolute dream. So feel free to suggest to Paul Cannell. This would be really good for Father's Day because I'd love that. I love the 80s of the Powell estate, and I added characters to the Powell estate. And that's quite funny as well, is the TARDIS wiki on the Powell estate. There's about 3 million people live on the Powell estate, according to all the books and audios. So it's like, I'll try and mention a couple from other things, but also you want to create your own. So suddenly there is, another character who's living on the Powell estate. But I think, although she's such a heightened character, I believe in Jackie as a person. I believe in Jackie and the girls and that flat and how Jackie is conflicted about Rose and sort of wants her to do well but doesn't want to forget her roots. I sort of my mum's side of the family is, I mean, they're more Brighton than London, but my granddad's London and very much Deptford, and that sort of vibe I absolutely get. And I love that, and I'd love to explore more of that in, say, Father's Day or Love and Monsters, where you'd have the opportunity to do more with Jackie and her background. So anything that sort of world would be a joy.
Can I ask a quick follow-on from that?
Yeah.
So what if your choice was expanded to Big Finish, comics, stage plays, like your stories or someone else's? Because there is precedent with Rob Sherman's.
Oh, I know. Which I
stories.
still haven't read because they're not on paperback yet, are they?
Hardback only, I think. Yes.
I think they're due out this month.
Oh, are they? Oh, brilliant.
I think so, the very near future, anyway.
Oh, they'll be straight on my list. I mean, obviously, Rob's a genius and that, so I'd love to do those. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. I don't know. I mean, I think the interesting one would be the Rapture, because it was my first ever thing. I mean, I'm not sure how well the music would go with the TV thing, but I did write my very first short story for Big Finish. Bear in mind, is 20 odd years ago, so I was youngish and quite sort of I've got so much to do. Is sort of written in the style of, I think, say, episode 2 of The Rapture, where it's quite free flowing and stuff like that. And I think I'd enjoy doing that sort of, because it is a generation ago now, but that sort of Generation X, Douglas Coupland style of capturing a zeitgeisty moment. That's very much of that time, of the birth of reality TV, 9/11, all that sort of stuff. It's a very distinct moment in time. So I think I'd enjoy doing The Rapture. But yeah, it would be something I'd love to do. And I think it would be fun to do something of my own. It would, I mean, if Big Finish say novelise this, I'll novelise anything, frankly. But it would actually be fun, I think, to novelise something of my own and go back to something of my own and go, right, let's tear it all apart, then put it back together again and go, what have I learned as a writer? What's different from writing it as a book, and so on. So yeah, I think The Rapture would be the one I'd probably go for, which obviously I don't think Big Finish would, because it's not the most popular release. So I think Big Finish would be like, no, maybe not.
I'd buy it.
Oh, well, thank you. So it's one thing.
There's one.
Yeah.
Connor, is there anything you want to come in with?
My big one was going to be, what's it feel like to write a target novel? But we've had that one. Is there a difference? I know you've already sort of gone over this, but you had said about Doctor Who fan Joe writing a target novel and professional Joe writing a target novel. What's it like whenever it comes in and you've actually got a target book in your hand with the little logo in the corner and your name on the cover?
Yeah, I mean, that was amazing when they it's an odd thing, because I can't remember how many copies I got, but they sort of sent 2 or 3 first. And so I immediately messaged the editorial assistant I've been working with, and sort of said to her, "Oh, thank you so much, they've come, it's very exciting." I think the audios came first. I think I got some CDs first. And I was like, it's so exciting to see the CDs, but I've written CDs before. I've never had a book come in with that, paperback book like that. So it was a bit like, oh, the CDs are here, great. Where's the books? And then the books came like literally 2 hours later on the same day. It was a different kind of post or something. And yeah, that was so exciting. It was very exciting to see them. I've got it right next to me here. It's so, to see the target logo, Doctor Who, Aids of London, Joseph Lidster, is genuinely really exciting. Yeah, and I just love the covers and everything about them. So yeah, it is. Yeah, that's exciting on both nerd and professional levels. There's a book right here with my name on it. Also, it's got the Target logo on it. So both sides of the brain are happy with that.
Happy days.
Well, before we move on, because we're going to pester you about Torchwood as well, obviously, Joe. Before we move on, I just wanted to sort of share what my favourite line from the whole thing was, and it was sort of when Harriet Jones first hears the Doctor referenced, she wonders, does he work at a cottage hospital? That got a laugh out loud.
It's because And it's that's such a Russell thing that he does, but also because it's brilliant. It's such a little thing. I had to Google what a cottage hospital was. I was like, I'm not 100% certain still what an actual cottage hospital is. So I had to Google it. But also, I can't remember why. I think it was just because because Russell does that brilliant thing of creating characters in so few lines. So she cares passionately about this thing, cottage hospitals. Doesn't matter whether you know what one is. She cares passionately about it. But I had that slight thing of, it's like how Tegan can never stop banging on about being an air stewardess. So for her first few stories, all she goes is, "It looks like Heathrow." And it's like, it doesn't. Where's the pilot of this thing? How do you know it's an airplane? So it's like, so I just thought it'd be really funny if she hears the doctor say, "Ooh, cottage hospitals."
Yeah, it was great. It got a laugh out
good.
loud, and I was on the tram at the time, so
Oh, brilliant!
it's probably the only time I've ever looked like a weirdo on the tram. But there we go. Go on then. So we seem to be really good at getting you on sort of very shortly before a Torchwood big finish you've written comes out. We seem to be quite lucky with this. But obviously the next one is the last ever one. It's the last big finish Torchwood. And
well, no, there's a special thing happening.
Yes.
I think called Legacy. Legacy.
Yes, I think we've got a name. I think that's all we've got.
But there's something happening, but it's not. This is the last regular monthly release.
Yeah, which is obviously a huge end of an era, like number 100, and I've loved Big Finish Torchwood. I've said this on this podcast many times before. It's always had just such a ridiculously high hit rate. Like, how can 100 releases have so many fantastic sort of ideas and stories told there? So yeah, the last one. How did it feel to be asked to do that? Does it feel like it's sort of on your shoulders, or are you pretty chilled with it now?
Well, again, it's not both. It's like I wasn't asked to do the last one, and then when it was revealed it was going to be the last one, when I can't remember when James told me, and he's very insistent on the title because I kept changing the title. He said it's got to be that, and then he sort of said it's going to be the last one. And I didn't really think anything of it until I did an interview or something, and someone said, "Oh, you must feel so proud to be doing the final one." And again, I was like, I hadn't really thought about that. And then I feel really bad for not thinking that, because it's like, obviously, what an honour that I've been asked to do that. So it is, it's amazing. But it came about not from me writing the last one. I adore the character of Tommy that we created for the Tortured One audios, and I'm unsure. I thought we got given notes, but apparently I created Tommy and the other characters who exist in the Tortured One, that first box set. I basically went away because I was writing the first story. I went away and created, here's 6 characters or 5 characters who work here that will then be in the whole box set. Some will die and do the story. So I created Tommy, and I sort of realised this Tommy is probably the closest I am to what I'd be like if I was working for Torchwood, because I'm not particularly, I don't wear suits, I'm not posh, I swear too much, I drink too much, I eat too much, I'm not as sexist and homophobic as Tommy and all his other flaws, but I grew up in the north. He's got elements of me in him. And what he is we were recording the box set of I Hate Mondays, which I think was the last Tortured One box set, and I was at the recording for James's opening dinner party episode, which we sort of developed the story together, and then he wrote, and it's, as ever with the James Goss script, it's astonishingly funny and clever and smart, and feels like it's been written in 5 minutes because it's just so effortlessly thing. Whereas I know it hasn't been, but he writes such effortlessly funny, smart, jokey dialogue, and it's this thing that's sort of created over the years with Tortured One box set, where Tommy was just one of the characters working in Tortured One, and he's there in the first box set and everything like that. And Tim's performance is so brilliant and funny that I think people kept bringing him back. And then suddenly it's sort of merged into, because you can't have too many other characters, because if you have too many of the other characters, you've got no room for guest characters. So you sort of end up with stories where Yanto and somebody else go off and have an adventure, because you've got to have guest characters in to die and turn out to be alien invaders and things. So, but then it's sort of merged into, James wrote this royal Yvonne wakes up in bed with the prince, and it's a farce. It's an hour-long farce of Yanto, Yvonne, and Tommy having to sort of deal with this dead prince, heir to the throne character, and they're brilliant. The three of them are brilliant, and it's sort of happened organically that Tommy has just become this amazing character. And I think if you listen to Tommy, Yanto, and Yvonne, you don't sit there and go, Yvonne and Yanto never actually met on telly. They're from two completely different TV shows, and Tommy didn't exist. Tommy doesn't feel. Tommy's like Charlie Pollard or someone. He doesn't feel like this audio, created for one story and audio thing. He feels like you are absolutely up there with Leela. You are a character who exists in this universe. So we were at the recording of the I Hate Mondays box set, and I sort of said to James, I said, what's actually quite sad is that Tommy doesn't get a leaving story, because Tommy presumably dies off screen in Army of Ghosts. Is it where Tortured One gets destroyed? He presumably just dies off screen there. So that set us going, well, what story can we tell that is Yanto and Tommy, and slightly links to the character stuff that we've done with them in the I Hate Mondays box set, where Tommy absolutely is not a father figure towards Yanto, but clearly is. Yanto is not a son that Tommy's never had, but clearly is. And again, they're such fun characters to write for because they're constantly fighting what they really are. So it was nice. So I suggested doing something with that. James said it's got to have a Cyberman in it, and I was like, brilliant, love a Cyberman. And then it's sort of because of what the story is about, it kind of really fits nicely as the final story of the range. And all James asked me to do to make it that was to add to that was add a scene where Yanto talks a bit about previous adventures, so that it feels a bit. So there's a scene where Yanto says to Tommy about how great Tortured has been, and mentions a few places he's been and things like that reference to the radio dramas, the audio dramas, and everything else. That's quite nice. So it wasn't ever written as that, and I can't remember when I found out it was going to be the final one. If you interview James, he'll say, "Oh, he knew from the beginning," and it's just that he remembers and I don't.
So anybody got any other Torchwood questions while we're here?
Not fishing for spoilers or anything that's been commissioned, but if Torchwood's kind of on hold or having a rest, do you have any ideas about where you'd like to see those characters or that range go in the future?
I think for me is I'd enjoy exploring the past of it more. I did an audio with Sophie Aldred and Paul Clayton called Reflect, and during one of those, it's 4 short stories, and during one of them, I basically explained the first day of Torchwood, because I thought that's never been done. Again, TARDIS Mickey's your friend. You go, oh, we cut Victor. There's the 2 sort of lesbians in Cardiff that Jack fights in one of the stories on the TV. Before then, there's not really anybody, and then they've done some Queen Victoria audio. So I was thinking, well, who were the first? Who does the day after Tooth and Claw? Does Queen Victoria go, hello, you're going to run Torchwood? So I'd love to. So that was fun because I had a very short story to sort of try and create. How many do I have? 4. The new Torchwood team of 4 characters who don't have room to really breathe. So again, sort of doing that Russell Cottage Hospital thing. So I just went, one's a circus showman, one's a woman called Echo. We don't know anything else about her, but she's maybe got lots of... So it's just sort of that hinting. So I'd love to explore more with those. But I don't know... I genuinely don't know what the situation is at Big Finish of the license. Is there room to do a story a year? Can you do the occasional box set? Or is it, no, it's absolutely finished? But I think the monthly range finishing, although it's very sad, and I'll be very sad to see it go, I do think there's an element of, well, actually, it's done brilliantly. It's been 10 years and 100 stories, and things should come to an end at some point. I think there is an element of things do come to an end. And I think, James Goss has done an astonishing job, and I think it's got such a good hit rate because every month you've got this sort of story that comes out from Big Finish that is sort of tales of the unexpected. It's a Twilight Zone adventure. It's I've forgotten the word for it. horror sort of set in the countryside, folk horror. It's that, yeah, it's a folk horror. Every month you've got this story that and actually, although he hasn't, there aren't many of the actors in the TV series, so actually what you end up is sort of getting a lot of stories, and it's really strong characterization. And I do think there's a thing with Torchwood with some ranges where you go, the characters in this story should feel like they went and bought a pint of milk this morning, and I love that personally. That's my kind of world of Doctor Who. So right for the Powell Estate was amazing because those characters make cups of tea and things like that. And I believe that the people in Torchwood Adventures every month, the guest characters and the main characters are people who have that morning made a cup of tea or woken up with a hangover or, very human stuff. And I think because James has pushed that, what you've ended up with is this run of very strong stories. And I think they've done some astonishing stuff. Tim Foley's work on the Torture Range is, up there with Rob Shearman, as far as I'm concerned. It's genuinely astonishing writing. It transcends being a monthly spin-offy TV type, thing, and becomes, this is an astonishing radio play. So yeah, I think it's very sad that it's ending, but I do think there is an element of, well, it's done. We reach, everything does come to an end.
And I suppose 100 stories plus 3 continuation series plus Torchwood 1 box set. It's a lot. There's a lot of Torchwood.
And it's good that, I think when something comes to an end like that, it means that if you haven't got it all, you can go, okay, I can start filling in the gaps and start learning stuff. I think the Torchwood 1 range has done some brilliant stuff. There's been some the creation of Tommy, but I think the Torchwood 1 range, Tracy Noban's astonishingly good. Gareth David Lloyd is so brilliant. And Yanto and Yvonne have no reason to be characters that work well together, but they do, because we've explored. Yanto is such a developed, rounded character now because of all the stuff that's been added to him. And Yvonne is, and you sort of get the tragedy of these characters, but also the constant fighting to live another day and enjoy life that you get with all of these characters. I love it. I love the world of Torchwood. So yeah, I'd love to do more. We shall, I genuinely don't know what the situation is, but I've written the last one, so it goes out on a high or a low if you like my work, depending on whether you like my stuff or not.
Well, hopefully there will be more in the future at some point.
Although I think it's a place where you do the equivalent of a feature film, just do one. I'd love to do 1999, Tortured 1999, because we've got Alex who runs Tortured 1999. In an audio I created some characters that live there. In another audio, somebody's created some characters that work there. So we've already got named characters who work there who we don't know anything about. They're just dead bodies. But we could do, you could do a box set or a 3-hour, 2-hour, hour and a half epic story featuring Tortured 1999 that takes you up to the final days of the millennium. I think I would love that. That would be my dream going forward, would be if they did things like that. But I don't know how it works business-wise and so on.
Well, hopefully one day.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Well, that's been a lot. It's been great to be joined by you, Joe. It's been great to discuss Aliens of London and Torchwood. Like we always love a Torchwood conversation. We'll never not have a Torchwood conversation on this podcast.
That's my favourite thing.
We'll do a Torchwood episode sometime. Let's do a dedicated Joe Lidster.
I did a talk
podcast.
sort of Q&A at the University of Exeter recently, beginning of the year, and they showed my Torchwood episode, and I haven't seen it in years. And it was so funny watching it because it was like everybody looks so young. Like Bern Gorman looks like a child. They all look like children because they were these older, sexy characters I was writing for, and I was younger than them. And now I sit there looking, going, they're all so young and pretty and so beautiful and young. So it's quite funny because it feels like it was yesterday, and then you watch it and go, no, this is 20 years ago. It's coming up to 20 years.
I still can't believe that Miracle Day was 15 years ago, something like that.
I mean, the thing actually in the novelisation of Aliens of London, there's a character, Molly Steer, I created, who's named after my nan, who, bless her, is still alive. She's in her 90s. She's still going. And I thought it'd be nice to have I want a character that we occasionally cut to, who's again a human character, a sort of Russell T Davies, Terence Dick style, just a character who doesn't really impact on the story. She's just there. She can see the TARDIS arrive, that sort of thing. And I thought, oh, what can I do? Oh, she could be the first person who ever moved on to the power estate. She's hobbling around a dead husband. Da, 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 da. And I think it was Steve Tribe, his version of reading it. And he just went, you don't know if she's about 50. Because I forget that Aliens of London is 20 years ago. So I'm writing this character who's in her 70s, forgetting that actually if she's having a baby she's literally about my age. And so we had to tone down this, because again, it's like you said, it just doesn't feel that long ago. It feels like yesterday, and it's literally a generation ago. Everybody in the Tyler family is now a generation older than they were back then. I'm older than every single cast member of Rose, which is terrifying. That just makes no sense. I remember when it was like, oh, the first time that a companion's younger than me, and now it's like, everybody is younger than you.
See, I had with Shooty Gatwa the Doctor's younger than me now moment.
I see, you're younger than me, because I think I had that with, Matt Smith. I think Matt's the first one who's younger than me. But yeah, it's quite odd rewatching Aliens of London and being like, Jackie Tyler is a child. Why is the mum in this story so young? And it's like, she's, you're the one who's aged. They haven't. They're captured like in that period.
But it was such a good era.
Oh,
it was great. It really was, wasn't it? 2005.
I mean, Aliens of London, it just feels very summery, that series one. I just associate it with it being sunny. There was a really hot summer, I think. I think it was a hot summer. In my head, that was a gorgeous summer. And yeah, it's just, a couple of hairstyles aside, it hasn't really aged. I think it looks like now, apart from smartphones. Why don't they just look at a map? It's like, because they don't have maps.
Apple Maps wasn't a thing then.
Oh, YouTube wasn't a thing. I mean, that's the thing when you look into it and you go, YouTube didn't exist at that point.
No. You see, we could be sat here all night going, oh, this didn't exist. Things that weren't around.
Yeah. That's
I've
actually...
got to go and cook my tea.
Oh, sorry. There was it's a very small sort of fact, but I think it's true. When they were filming Fear Her, so obviously that's set in 2012, they didn't want to make any big predictions. The only thing they changed was that people would be watching the telly on their computers, because they decided that you'd be able to do that by 2012 because YouTube wasn't really a thing. So that's the one small change they made, which you wouldn't even spot looking back.
Yeah.
That was like a decision they had to make, because obviously so soon after that became very commonplace.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah. Well, I think that probably does. We're at the hour and a half mark. That probably means we've run out of time. This is one of the longest podcasts, but it's been absolutely great to have you on again, Joe. And it's great
so
that you're
fun. Thank you. It's
great that you're still writing things, and we've got even more excuses to keep bringing you back on and that kind of thing. So we'll do the same again soon. I'm definitely up for that Torchwood episode.
Oh, yeah.
So yes, thanks very much for joining us, and it's just good to be back. It's good to be spodcasting again, because it has been a little break. We've been kind of recording away in the background, maybe 1 or 2 a month, but the recording schedule's kicking in again now. So it's exciting to be back, and it's really exciting that you've joined us for this first one of our fourth series. So this is going to be the longest podcast goodbye we've ever done. So let's go then. So it's thank you and goodbye to Connor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you and goodbye to Mansoor.
Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye to Will.
Thank you, Chirap.
And thank you and goodbye to our very special guest, Joseph Lidster.
Thank you. It's been a joy. Goodbye.
We'll be back for more spodcasting very, very soon. Goodbye now.